Hello, everyone. Have you ever found yourself staring at your phone, wondering why they haven't called or texted? Maybe you're thinking, why am I always the one to reach out? It's a vulnerable feeling, a mix of frustration and self-doubt that can leave you questioning your worth. But today, I want to reframe this moment. Instead of waiting or worrying, I invite you to take a step rooted in courage, clarity, and self-respect. Reaching out to someone first can feel like stepping onto a stage with no script, no spotlight, and no idea if anyone is even in the audience. It's raw, uncertain, and often a little terrifying. But what if we stopped seeing this act as a risk and started recognizing it as one of the most courageous things we can do? Vulnerability at its core is the willingness to show up and be seen without any guarantee of how we'll be received. It's saying, I care enough to try, even when there's a chance we might not get the response we hope for. Many of us shy away from this kind of openness because it feels like exposing a part of ourselves that we'd rather keep hidden. We've been taught that being vulnerable makes us weak, that it's better to be aloof or guarded than to show someone that we need them or value them. But think about the moments in your life when you felt truly connected to someone. Were those moments born from perfection and invulnerability? Or did they come from shared truths, from taking a chance, from admitting, I miss you, I care about you, or even I'd really love to hear from you? When you choose to be vulnerable, you're not just making the first move in a conversation, you're creating an opportunity for genuine connection. You're signaling to the other person that they matter to you, that you value the relationship enough to nurture it actively. And that's not weakness, that's strength. It's the kind of strength that builds trust, fosters intimacy, and sets the tone for deeper, more meaningful relationships. But let's be honest, vulnerability isn't always comfortable. It can feel like walking into a room without your armor on, unsure if anyone will notice or care. That discomfort, however, is where growth happens. By embracing vulnerability, you're practicing resilience. You're learning to face uncertainty and to show up for the things that matter to you, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. It's also important to remember that being the first to call or text doesn't mean you're weak or desperate. It means you're willing to prioritize connection over ego. Often, people don't reach out first because they're afraid to. They might be battling their own insecurities or assuming you don't want to hear from them. Your willingness to take that first step could be the bridge they were too scared to build themselves. Vulnerability isn't about abandoning your own needs or chasing after someone who consistently dismisses you. It's about showing up authentically and trusting that the right people will see and appreciate you for who you are. And if they don't, that's information too. Vulnerability helps you discern which relationships are worth your energy and which ones may not be capable of the mutual respect and care you deserve. The next time you wonder whether to make the first move, remember this: every act of vulnerability is a statement of strength. It says, I care enough to try, and that's something to be proud of. Your self-worth is not a reflection of who texts first, who responds quickly, or who doesn't respond at all. It's not something that fluctuates based on how others treat you or how much effort they seem to put into your relationship. Your self-worth is intrinsic. It's the unshakable truth that you are enough simply because you exist. Yet so many of us fall into the trap of letting other people's actions or inactions dictate how we feel about ourselves. When someone doesn't call or text you first, it's easy to internalize the silence as a lack of interest or care. You might start to question, what's wrong with me? Am I not important to them? But this line of thinking places your value in the hands of others, and that's a dangerous place for it to be. When your sense of self-worth depends on external validation, you're giving away control over how you feel about yourself. The truth is, how someone behaves is often a reflection of their own priorities, challenges, or limitations. It's not a mirror of your worth. Your value is constant. whether people acknowledge it or not. It's not about how many friends you have, how often someone reaches out to you, or how quickly they reply. It's about the kindness in your heart, the depth of your character, and the way you show up for yourself and others. When you anchor your self-worth in these internal qualities, external circumstances hold less power over you. You stop looking to others for approval because you've already given it to yourself. Acknowledging your self-worth doesn't mean you don't care about how people treat you. On the contrary, it means you recognize that you deserve to be treated with respect, love, and consideration. When you value yourself, you're less likely to chase after people who don't value you in return. You set boundaries not out of anger or resentment, but out of a deep understanding that your time, energy, and emotional well-being are precious. It's also important to remember that acknowledging your self-worth is an ongoing practice. There will be moments of doubt, times when someone's lack of response stings, or when you find yourself questioning your place in their life. In those moments, remind yourself that your worth isn't up for debate. It doesn't diminish because someone fails to meet your expectations. Instead of waiting for someone else to affirm your value, affirm it yourself. Speak kindly to yourself, celebrate your strengths, and remind yourself of the unique light you bring to the world. If they don't see it or choose not to prioritize you, that's not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of where they are in their own journey. Acknowledging your self-worth allows you to approach relationships from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. You stop grasping for attention or validation because you already know you are enough. And when you truly embrace this truth, you attract people and opportunities that honor and reflect the love and respect you have for yourself. When someone doesn't call or text you first, it can stir a storm of emotions, confusion, frustration, maybe even sadness. It's human to wonder why, to question what it means about the relationship, or worse, about yourself. But here's the truth, your worth has nothing to do with how others engage with you. It doesn't fluctuate based on who initiates contact or how often they show up in your inbox. Your self-worth is yours alone, and it's unchanging, rooted in the fact that you exist and bring something unique to the world. It's easy to fall into the trap of measuring your value through the actions of others. You might think if they really cared, they'd call first, or why am I always the one reaching out? Am I not important to them? These thoughts are understandable but dangerous. They hand the keys to your sense of self over to someone else, allowing their choices to dictate how you see yourself. The reality is, someone else's behavior often has little to do with you. It might reflect their priorities, challenges, or habits, none of which diminish your inherent value. Your self-worth doesn't depend on how others treat you. It's about who you are at your core, your kindness, your resilience, your authenticity. It's about the effort you put into becoming the best version of yourself, not how many texts you receive or how quickly someone responds. When you understand this, you take back the power you've unknowingly given away. You realize that you don't need external validation to confirm what's already true. You are enough, just as you are. This doesn't mean you won't feel disappointed when someone doesn't reach out. It's natural to want reciprocity in relationships, to hope others will make the same effort you do. But acknowledging your self-worth allows you to navigate these feelings with grace. Instead of spiraling into self-doubt, you can say, I'm disappointed, but it doesn't mean I'm unworthy of care or love. You give yourself permission to feel hurt without letting it define you. When you value yourself, you also set boundaries that reflect that worth. You stop chasing people who don't reciprocate your energy. You stop over-explaining or overcompensating, and you start seeking relationships that feel balanced and mutual. This isn't about cutting people off at the first sign of neglect. It's about recognizing when a pattern emerges and making decisions that prioritize your emotional well-being. Understanding your self-worth is about anchoring yourself in your own truth. It's about knowing that no matter how others show up or fail to you are still whole, still worthy, still deserving of love and connection. This knowledge doesn't make you invincible, but it does make you resilient. It allows you to face disappointment without losing faith in yourself. And when you carry this unshakable sense of worth, you attract the kinds of relationships that reflect and honor the love you've already found within. Creating space for connection starts with recognizing that meaningful relationships require intention, effort, and sometimes a little vulnerability. It's about understanding that connection doesn't happen by accident. It's cultivated through actions, words, and a willingness to meet others where they are. When you feel like someone isn't reaching out first, it's easy to retreat into frustration or assume they don't care. But often, the reality is far more nuanced. People carry their own fears, insecurities, and distractions that might prevent them from making the first move. By choosing to take the initiative, you open the door for connection that might otherwise remain closed. When you make the first call or send the first text, you're not just starting a conversation, you're extending an invitation. It's a way of saying, I value this relationship enough to nurture it. This act can shift the dynamic, allowing the other person to feel seen and appreciated, which often encourages them to reciprocate. However, creating space for connection also means letting go of rigid expectations about how others should respond. It's about focusing on the effort, not the outcome, and trusting that the right people will meet you halfway. To create this space, you must also embrace curiosity. Instead of assuming you know why someone hasn't reached out, approach the situation with an open mind. They may be overwhelmed, preoccupied, or simply unsure of how to start the conversation. By reaching out first, you're not only showing them that it's okay to connect, but also modeling the kind of relationship you want, one rooted in care, initiative, and understanding. It's important to recognize that creating space for connection isn't just about initiating contact. It's about the quality of that interaction. Are you truly present when you engage with others? Do you listen not just to respond, but to understand? Genuine connection happens when people feel safe to share their thoughts and emotions without fear of judgment. You can foster this safety by being authentic and encouraging the same in return. Creating this space also involves being mindful of your boundaries. While it's generous to reach out, it's equally important to recognize when your efforts aren't being reciprocated. Relationships thrive on mutual care. And if you're always the one making the effort, it's worth reflecting on whether the connection is balanced. Sometimes the best way to create space is by stepping back, allowing the other person the opportunity to show up. If they value the relationship, they'll find their way back to you. Remember that creating space for connection doesn't mean forcing it. Not every relationship will flourish, and that's okay. Some people may not have the capacity to connect in the way you need, and that's not a reflection of your worth. Focus on nurturing the connections that feel natural and reciprocal, where both parties are willing to invest time and energy. When you approach relationships with intention, authenticity, and an open heart, you create the kind of space where meaningful connections can truly grow. Boundaries are often misunderstood as walls, something that keeps people out or creates distance in relationships. But true boundaries are not about pushing others away. They're about protecting your own well-being and maintaining a sense of self-respect. Understanding the power of boundaries means recognizing that your time, your emotions, and your energy are valuable, and you have the right to decide how and with whom you share them. When you set boundaries, you're not just saying no to others, you're saying yes to yourself, to your own needs, and to the kind of relationships that honor and support you. Many of us struggle with boundaries because we fear conflict or the possibility of being perceived as selfish or demanding. But in reality, boundaries are an essential part of any healthy relationship. They create space for mutual respect, understanding, and care. Without them, relationships can become unbalanced, with one person constantly giving while the other takes, or both people losing sight of their own needs in the process of trying to meet each other's expectations. Setting boundaries helps establish the foundation for a relationship built on trust and respect, where both people can show up authentically and with care. When you understand the power of boundaries, you stop seeing them as limitations and start viewing them as a tool for creating the kind of relationships that align with your values. Boundaries give you the freedom to be yourself without fear of being drained or taken advantage of. They allow you to protect your emotional space, which is essential for maintaining your own mental and emotional health. In practice, this means not feeling guilty for saying no when something doesn't feel right for you, or not feeling obligated to always put others' needs before your own. It's important to note that setting boundaries doesn't mean you're being rigid or inflexible. Boundaries can be fluid, evolving as you learn more about yourself and your needs. They can change depending on the relationship, the situation, and your own personal growth. The key is to be in tune with your feelings and needs so that you can communicate them honestly and kindly to others. When you communicate your boundaries clearly and assertively, you invite others to meet you where you are and respect your limits. This doesn't guarantee that everyone will respect them, but it does give you the power to decide how you respond when someone crosses a boundary. Learning to set boundaries also means recognizing when you're not being valued or respected. If someone repeatedly doesn't make the effort to reach out, doesn't respect your time, or disregards your feelings, it's a signal that you need to reassess the relationship. Healthy relationships are built on mutual effort and respect, and boundaries help ensure that both parties are contributing to the connection in a way that feels balanced. When you set clear boundaries, you create space for those relationships that feel reciprocal and nourishing. The power of boundaries lies in their ability to help you honor your needs while still showing up for the people who matter most. They are an act of self-care, a way to preserve your emotional and mental health, and a reflection of the respect you have for yourself and others. When you understand and practice boundaries, you build stronger, healthier relationships where both you and the people you care about can thrive. Discomfort is an inevitable part of life, especially when it comes to relationships and personal growth. Yet, many of us instinctively avoid it, seeking the safety of what feels familiar, even if it's not serving us. Learning to be comfortable with discomfort is one of the most transformative skills you can develop because it's in those moments of unease that growth, understanding, and deeper connections are born. Discomfort isn't something to fear, it's a signal that you're stretching beyond your comfort zone, leaning into vulnerability, and creating the possibility for something greater. Reaching out first, sharing your feelings, or addressing unmet expectations in a relationship can all bring a sense of unease. You may worry about rejection, being misunderstood, or feeling exposed. That discomfort often tempts us to retreat, to stay silent, to wait for the other person to make the first move. But when we give in to that avoidance, we rob ourselves of opportunities to strengthen relationships and grow as individuals. Facing discomfort is a courageous act that says, I'm willing to show up even when it's hard. Being comfortable with discomfort doesn't mean you enjoy it. It means you recognize its purpose and value. Discomfort often signals that something important is happening. It's what you feel when you're pushing boundaries, trying something new, or engaging in an honest conversation. It's not a sign that something is wrong, but rather that you're engaging with something meaningful. Avoiding discomfort may feel safe in the short term, but it limits your ability to experience the depth of life and relationships. One of the biggest gifts of embracing discomfort is resilience. When you stop fearing it, you build confidence in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. Every time you lean into discomfort, whether it's sending a message you're nervous about, addressing a misunderstanding, or allowing yourself to be vulnerable, you teach yourself that you're capable of navigating the unknown. Over time, what once felt overwhelming becomes more manageable, and you find strength in knowing you can endure and even thrive in challenging situations. Discomfort is also essential for authentic connection. Genuine relationships require honesty, and honesty often involves difficult conversations or moments of vulnerability. Being willing to express how you feel, even when it's uncomfortable, paves the way for deeper understanding and trust. It's in those moments that you show others your true self and invite them to do the same. If you're constantly avoiding discomfort, you may keep relationships at a surface level, missing the chance to form deeper bonds. Learning to be comfortable with discomfort means shifting your mindset. Instead of seeing discomfort as a threat, view it as an opportunity. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow through this experience? This shift in perspective allows you to approach challenges with curiosity instead of fear. You realize that discomfort isn't something to escape, it's something to embrace, a catalyst for the life and relationships you truly desire. When you make peace with discomfort, you stop holding yourself back. You become more open, more courageous, and more connected to both yourself and others. Discomfort becomes not an obstacle, but a doorway to everything you're capable of achieving. When you put your energy and effort into something, whether it's reaching out to others, building a relationship, or pursuing personal growth, it's easy to become fixated on the outcome. You might find yourself anxiously awaiting a response, hoping for validation, or desperately trying to control how things unfold. But this focus on the outcome often leaves you feeling disappointed, frustrated, and disconnected from the actual process. Trusting the process instead of the outcome is about letting go of the need for immediate results and finding peace in the journey itself. Whether positive or negative is never fully within your control. People may not respond in the way you hope, situations might not unfold as expected, and things might not always go according to plan. However, what you can control is the effort you put in and the intention behind it. Trusting the process is about focusing on the actions you can take today, not on a distant future goal or desired response. It's about trusting that showing up, being authentic, and doing your best is enough, even when the results aren't instant or guaranteed. When you focus solely on the outcome, you limit yourself. You begin to measure your worth and your success based on whether things turn out a certain way. But life rarely works in a linear fashion, and some of the most profound growth comes from the unexpected moments and detours along the way. If you're only focused on the end result, you may miss the lessons, experiences, and connections that are unfolding right in front of you. Trusting the process means being present in each step, even when it feels uncertain, because you understand that growth happens incrementally, not in giant leaps. One of the most powerful aspects of trusting the process is the freedom it brings. You no longer feel weighed down by the pressure of needing to control everything. Instead, you release the attachment to specific outcomes and allow yourself to move forward with confidence, knowing that you're doing your part. You understand that your worth is not tied to a particular result. The process itself, the learning, the trying, the evolving is where true value lies. Even if the outcome doesn't match your expectations, you've gained something meaningful from the journey. It's also important to remember that the process of reaching out, trying, and engaging with others isn't always about immediate reciprocation. It's about building habits of connection, strengthening your emotional resilience, and cultivating a mindset that values effort over perfection. Trusting the process means acknowledging that sometimes the return on your effort won't be immediate, but that doesn't make it any less valuable. The relationships you build, the skills you develop, and the person you become along the way are all part of the growth that will eventually pay off in ways you can't always predict. When you trust the process, you release the pressure that comes with trying to control every aspect of your interactions. You open yourself up to the possibility of unexpected outcomes, and you allow yourself to enjoy the journey without obsessing over the destination. Ultimately, trusting the process is about having faith in yourself and in the natural unfolding of things. It's about believing that everything you need is already within you, and that the path you're walking, no matter how uncertain, is leading you to where you're meant to be.